Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly podcast. I am Tony Gerdeman, here as always with Tom Orr. Tom, how's it going?
It's game day, or almost game day, depending on when you're listening to this.
Or if you're going to the Cheez-It Bowl tonight, it is game day.
It is, or it was game day, depending on when you were listening to this.
Yes, so that is the caveat to all of this. So yeah, this is basically our final show before the pre-game Facebook Live video where we'll preview the game for the 8th, 9th, 13th time?
This year? This year would be the 14th time.
I just meant this Fiesta Bowl.
Oh, this is the 9th time Ohio State has been at the Fiesta Bowl, which is the most of any school, which, when you think about it, is really not that surprising because it seems like they come here about every third year.
Yeah, and so there's Dabo Sweeney, I think he said it best today when at the morning press conference when he just said ditto from everything yesterday. He had nothing left to say, and there's some questions, and pretty much it was you could have pre-written the transcript from that and how that was going to go. I don't understand the day before press conferences when we've talked to everybody, nothing else needs to be said, nothing else can be said, and it seems like a waste of time for the coaches.
Well, it wouldn't necessarily be a waste of time because you could have like meaningful updates about injuries or something like that, but they won't provide those. So therefore, it is kind of meaningless. It's like, oh, I talked to someone after you were on the stage yesterday, and I have a follow-up question about that person. It's just kind of that. It's just very much like a kind of a cleanup day, the last day before winter break or whatever, and you're just sort of getting everything in order and getting everything ready for the big day.
And so the Ohio State's availability report came out. There are no game day decisions, which means everybody who could play will play. The standard guys who have been out for the last month or two, are still out, so there's no change there. But I guess the good news would be that Damon Arnett, Shaun Wade, and Justin Fields are going to play. Not that we didn't think they were, but really those are the only three major injuries right now for the Buckeyes.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the stuff we've been keeping an eye on. And with guys who were game time decisions for previous games, if it was this game, they probably would have gone, even Shaun Wade sat out the Michigan game. That was, I think, probably a little bit against his will. He sat out the Michigan game. I don't know that he would have been sitting out the Clemson game if it was the same thing.
And so he'll be back. And given how, I don't want to say how bad the defense was without him, how much they had to fix while he was out.
How much they could have improved.
Him being back now and being healthy, assuming he is healthy and fully healthy, because I think being healthy and fully healthy are two different things in this game. And if he's fully healthy, then that's great. If he's not fully healthy, that's not great, given who he'll be matched up against on the inside, a quick dude. And then also they'll run four wides, Clemson will, and he may find himself up against T. Higgins or Justin Ross at times. But I think he'll be. It's almost one of those things where I believe he had his leg wrapped, maybe his hammy wrapped.
Yeah.
This week, and so it's almost where the bigger guys would be okay. It's the smaller guys maybe might give him an issue this time around.
Yeah, that quick movement, the quick change of direction, that could be an issue for him more than anything else. And if he's healthy but not fully healthy, that's not ideal.
Yeah.
But 85% Shaun Wade is probably better than any of the options behind Shaun Wade at this point. So that's a win if he's out on the field, because I mean you saw what it looks like if he's not out there and they don't feel like they can trust the young corners. That was the first half of the Michigan game, and they just got eaten alive because they had matchup issues. And Clemson's wide receivers are at least as good as Michigan's. So I mean that's the one unit on Michigan's team that's actually somewhat comparable to Clemson's talent, but you still probably would give Clemson the edge there. And this is a real good game. If Shaun Wade and Jeff Okudah are thinking about turning pro, this would be a real impressive game for them to put some good plays on film if they have the opportunity.
Yeah, and if they have a really good game, then like if Shaun Wade has a great game, you might want to just go ahead and kiss him goodbye.
Not literally.
Not literally, figuratively. Because this is, I don't know if we said it on this show or whatever recently, but this is the start of the combine, basically. If you have a good showing here. Talking about Michigan's wide receivers, and I was just thinking, Nico Collins, Donovan Peoples-Jones, I guess we don't need to talk about Tariq Black, but Ronnie Bell, like, in this Clemson offense, they would be pretty darn good, because Jeff Okudah said this week that Clemson's receivers are better down the field, but they go down the field. Like, Michigan's guys didn't go down the field enough. Like, we felt like Nico Collins should be targeted 2 or 3 times down the field a game, and if he was, maybe he would be putting up 1,000 yards like T. Higgins, and I think maybe he had 1,000 yards anyway, but I feel like Donovan Peoples-Jones has been underutilized his entire career, but also maybe he didn't come in ready to contribute right away like Justin Ross did last year as a true freshman. But I think they are comparable, and I think they would do very well in Clemson's offense. But you put Justin Ross and T. Higgins in Michigan's offense, I don't know that they would be doing anything differently than what DPJ and Nico Collins did this year.
I mean, probably not. I mean, Nico Collins, I'm looking at his numbers right now, 33 catches, 681 yards, 7 touchdowns. Like, that's
not because he's bad.
That's pretty pedestrian given his talent level. And that's just, I mean, literally since the summer before the season, we said, hey, they need to throw the ball deep to Nico Collins more because he's real good down the field, and they just didn't do it. Why do we all of our shows turn into Michigan shows? I don't understand. We'll get to that when we do our Citrus Bowl preview for our Patreon audience later.
We'll also
week.
have to do a Michigan exit interview type of thing where we recap their season and have a good time.
How did that go? Was it good? Because I know they were picked to win the Big Ten, but
correct. And
I didn't watch a lot of football this fall. Did they end up winning?
The season is still going on.
Okay,
and they entered the season as maybe the third most likely team to make the playoffs behind Alabama and Clemson.
Mm-hmm. Was that by FEI, which is definitely a real thing and not just a monkey with a dartboard and a
No, I believe it was the monkey and a dartboard. And speaking of monkeys, Tom.
Speaking of predictive monkeys, yes. As one does. Smooth transition.
And then, of course, we'll get hate mail like, orangutans aren't monkeys.
That's true. They
are apes.
If you say so.
I do say so. They are great apes.
They are great.
This one.
Particularly great.
Is the greatest. Here's how I rank the orangutans. Clyde from Any Which Way You Can or Any Which Way But Loose. Right Turn Clyde with Philo Beto, Clint Eastwood, 70s Street Fighter, correct?
Is the blank look on my face not communicating?
Really? You do not know about the Philo Beto and Any Which Way But Loose and Any Which Way You Can? Clint Eastwood?
I'm familiar with Clint Eastwood's body of work, yes.
But not those two movies?
Not those particular movies, no.
Oh, Tom.
I'm deeply sorry.
Tom.
I gotta tell you, 8 minutes into the show, this is not where I thought we would be.
But so Clyde was his pet orangutan. So he's number one. Number two, what's this joker's name here?
Rayma.
She's number two.
Rayma is the orangutan at the Phoenix Zoo, renowned for picking winners of sporting events. She has correctly predicted the last 2 Super Bowls in a row, which is extremely impressive.
Especially because there's so much cheating in the NFL.
Exactly. Well, she probably knows that. You've got to figure she's taking that into account with her picks.
Correct.
And she pulled off one of the great troll jobs of all time. It was like you could not have done this better if you were a really trolly college football recruit, really trying to troll people on National Signing Day. Picked up the Clemson shirt, looked at the Clemson shirt very carefully, thought about it, walked down to the Ohio State shirt, still had the Clemson shirt in her hand, and then put the Ohio State shirt on. It was a long, drawn-out process.
I swear she had that thing for 45 seconds, 30-45 seconds, that Clemson shirt, just holding it, and oh, man, then like the glass breaks, and out comes Stone Cold Steve Austin.
And then the orangutan shotguns a beer, and then she picks Ohio State. Yeah, it was really performance art. I have a story ready to go for tomorrow morning on the front page of the ozone.net, headlined, Local Expert Picks Buckeyes to Win Fiesta Bowl. Normally I don't read the comments. I'm so excited to read the comments on that one.
And, talking to other people like, hey, are you going to go to the zoo to see the pick? And everybody's like, no, that's stupid. It's like a photo op, but photographers weren't even going because, like, what's the point? And it turns out, like, this is the biggest thing to happen at this Fiesta Bowl ever.
Luckily,
in my opinion.
Luckily, some other idiots went, so we can just embed their tweets and make content out of it.
Hey, thank you, Al Gore.
Welcome to Media 2019.
Perfect. Any podcasts out there that we can talk about what they're saying so that we can do it on our show?
I think I don't think anyone else is talking about 1970s Clint Eastwood movies and
that's
Michigan
a shame,
football.
Tom, that is a shame. And we'll get that rectified. Maybe go to your iTunes and buy those, and then you can watch them on the plane on the way back this week.
There you go. That's a plan.
So, Tom, our staff picks went in. And I know, we make our picks at the end of the show, but we're kind of just disjointed at this point by the way the schedule has gone.
Speaking of articles where I won't be reading the comments.
So, Tom picked Clemson in a blowout, 35-31, whereas I picked a close Clemson win, 34-31.
Mm-hmm.
And after, talking to people, and Tom, because you've had this pick for a while, a couple of days, are you still feeling good about it in terms of, do you still feel like it's a strong pick, or are you swaying towards not being so strong now?
I mean, when I made the pick, I basically said, yeah, these are two basically evenly matched teams, and it's going to come down to like one play at some point. And the thing that swayed me was, well, if Justin Fields says his knee's 85%, then maybe that makes Ohio State's concern about pass pro a little bit more of a concern. And maybe there's like one play at some point where someone gets in and gets a strip sack on him. And that's the difference of the game. This is one of these games where I will take absolutely no pride in being correct, because this is essentially a coin flip. So, sure, maybe, I don't know. I mean, this is almost as close a matchup. Look at the team statistically. You look at the talent across the deck. Like, it's basically a coin flip. So, sure.
Yeah, and I went 34-31 and was like a smidge away from going 38-34 Ohio State.
Right, sure.
Like last possession type of thing, or I saw somebody on the board, or somebody tweeted me, there's no good way to pick this game, or no logical game, because it's so even. And they also mentioned how we're only looking at and this is probably one of the questions that we're getting into, but only looking at Ohio State's like difficulties in pass protection, even though it's not that bad. But when you're so good everywhere else, if there's one flaw, you're just going to latch onto it. And if it's just a small flaw, it's going to be the biggest flaw possible by the time you're so hyper focused on it, and that's all you think about. But the thing is, with these two teams being as evenly matched as possible, it only takes a small flaw to become the thing that causes you to lose.
Right, and that's exactly it. And I wrote about this a little bit when I wrote about Jackson Carman and Chase Young on Thursday. Like, literally, the difference in the game could be Chase Young gets around the corner on Jackson Carman and strip sacks Trevor Lawrence, versus Jackson Carman shuffles his feet slightly faster to knock Chase Young off course just enough that Trevor Lawrence has that extra half second to find a receiver downfield to make a big play. Like, that's the margins we're talking about. And that could be a play that happens in the first quarter. That could be a play that happens with 3 minutes left in the game. And that'll be, the margin there will be what decides the game, which is crazy. And it won't necessarily be Chase Young versus Jackson Carman. It could be Jeff Okudah against Justin Ross. Does Jeff Okudah get his hand on the ball, early enough to tip it away, or does Justin Ross pull the pass in, or whatever the matchup is? It's like, does J.K. Dobbins break the tackle from Isaiah Simmons, or does he get tripped up by the ankles and not break an 80-yard touchdown? Like, the margins are just so fine here.
And we'll be watching that game, and probably every time something significant happens, you're like, is that it? Is that the difference right there?
It's going to be real annoying to watch this game with you tomorrow.
Do you think, Tom, was that
it? Do you think that was it?
It's like, well, there's still a whole bunch of innings left, and there are a whole bunch of power hitters coming to the plate, and there will be home runs, but that fourth quarter, I mean, if it's close, we could be looking at something very special, because this is a game, I think the Scott Lightman, who is the head of the Fiesta Bowl, pretty much everything that, in terms of media relations, he did the Dabo and Ryan Day presser today and said this is probably, he thinks these are the two best teams that the Fiesta Bowl has ever had, like the best game. And, there's one back in 2003, January 3rd.
It was pretty good.
Pretty good.
It was okay.
It was all right. Very talented two teams, but I think this one, more people are anticipating it, even though nobody's picking Ohio State. Even the local, not necessarily local to Columbus idiots.
Mm-hmm. And there were plenty of people on the OSU beat that picked Ohio State. Yeah. But what was interesting to me this week is it seems like the Ohio State people generally are more down on Ohio State, or not down on Ohio State, just more looking at Ohio State's flaws and going, this could catch up to them. Yeah. And the Clemson people are looking at Clemson's flaws and going, this could catch up to them. And which I guess that's just sort of human nature. Like, you've spent so much time looking at one side of this that you're going to nitpick stuff. So, it's, again, these are extremely fine margins we're talking about. I haven't seen anyone pick like a 3-touchdown win for someone. I think someone on our staff picks might have picked, like a 2 touchdowns or 17-point win,
like
or something.
45-27 or something.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this, because for all of the breakdowns I do for this game and all of the advantages I have or I weigh, all sort of side with Ohio State, but I still end up picking Clemson. What do you think is more likely, Ohio State winning by 17 or Clemson winning by 17?
Ohio State winning by 17. Like, it seems like there's if Ohio State loses, Ohio State can run the ball well enough that they could dominate the game. I don't think Clemson can do that consistently. I think there's a pretty good chance Travis Etienne hits 100 yards on the ground. I don't really see him hitting 200 yards on the ground. I think there's a way that J.K. Dobbins has a 200-yard rushing game, and if J.K. Dobbins is running for 200 yards and they don't turn the ball over, there's a pretty good chance they're winning the game.
That's how I feel like Ohio State, how we're talking about this is the best Ohio State team we've ever seen, but then you get up to, you're up against the defending national champions, and you're kind of like, well, this is different for Ohio State, which it is. But there's this thing where this Ohio State team is really, really good, and if things go well, they could certainly blow out Clemson in 17 points, let's say. Mm. And I see that much more likely than Clemson winning by 17, and I'm trying to reconcile that with, picking Clemson when I've said all along, if Ohio State runs the ball and protects Justin Fields, they're going to win. And then you talk to all of the Clemson people, and they're telling us the Clemson flaws that, we don't know because we don't watch Clemson. And yet we still both feel like it's Clemson. And for me, it's because of the pass protection.
Yeah, that's kind of the $64,000 question for Ohio State is, can they keep Justin Fields upright? And there's the whole exacerbating factor there where if you don't keep Justin Fields upright, does something happen to his knee? Like, that's how Ohio State gets blown out in this game if Justin Fields goes down and can't keep playing. I don't know how Ohio State's going to react coming out of that tunnel. I mean, this goes back to the Urban Meyer thing we talked about on the last show. The first 7 minutes of the game. This is not going to be too big of a stage for Clemson. They just did this last year. They just came out, played Alabama in the national championship game last year, and won and blew Alabama off the field. This is not going to be like an overwhelming stage for Clemson. For Ohio State, first-year head coach, first-year quarterback, first-year starter at the center. I mean, you've got a lot of new guys who have not been in this position, in their current positions on this kind of stage before, who are in key spots. And, if Justin Fields comes out a little nervous and is airmailing throws like he was at the start of the Michigan game, that can, it's not as easy to make up ground if you start slow against, Clemson as it is against Wisconsin or Michigan.
And you're talking about they haven't been in this position before, and I'm thinking, I don't think Chris Olave will be affected. I don't think J.K. Dobbins will be affected, but it doesn't matter if the quarterback is affected. It doesn't matter what they do if the quarterback is affected, and he has been. And so even without necessarily there being pressure, it's just he's so hyped up in the Big Ten championship game, and I think even the start of the Michigan game. But then he settles in, and when that happens, now all cylinders are firing. But can that wait 2 quarters? And it's just like the Jeff Hafley, you can't wait until halftime to make adjustments. They've had to wait until halftime a couple of times recently to make those adjustments. This time you can't wait until halftime to make adjustments.
Yeah, and if he, that Urban Meyer thing again, the first couple drives, he said you can't, like all game, you can't get behind the sticks. You cannot lose yards on first down. You can't miss the pass on third down. You got to get at least a couple first downs, kind of flip the field, play, good sound special teams play. If Justin Fields, if it's 3rd and 5 and Justin Fields sails one over KJ Hill's hands, then okay, now you've lost, now you're punching it away from your own 30 instead of the 45. Clemson gets the ball in good field position. Maybe they go down and score. Okay, now you're kind of behind the 8 ball. If you have another one more bad pass where you have to punt the ball away, you're really kind of behind the 8 ball. And that's not, wow, he played a terrible half. That's like, well, he just, he got a little jittery.
Yeah.
He's, adrenaline was flowing a little too much. He just kind of airmailed the pass, and that's it. I think that Fields might be more susceptible to that than Lawrence, just because Lawrence has been on this kind of stage before and Fields hasn't. That doesn't mean it's going to happen. That doesn't mean that Trevor Lawrence isn't going to get strip sacked on the first play of the game. I mean, it's all possible.
Do you think if we were more, because I'll admit I haven't watched a lot of Clemson until the last couple of weeks, and that was basically just some Virginia and somebody else. But if I had watched more of their offensive line and their pass protection, I would think Ohio State's defensive line is better than Clemson's. So I wonder, and Ohio State's offensive line is probably better than Clemson's.
You're saying this, and I'm agreeing with you, and I'm going.
See, this is what I'm talking about.
But this is the thing. It's like that. That's normally the first thing I look at when I pick a game. Like the first thing. If it's if Ohio State has a matchup advantage in the trenches on offense and a matchup advantages in the trenches on defenses, they're not going to lose the game unless they're -3 in turnovers. This seems like there's just so much talent, and maybe this is just an irrational. I haven't seen Clemson lose in 2 years, so therefore I will believe it when I see it.
I think there's some of that. Plus, there's also the whole we have seen Ohio State lose.
Mm-hmm.
So you combine those two.
Not
things.
under Ryan Day, hater.
But it's the more you if we were to go tail of the tape or whatever, offensive line versus defensive line, and J.K. Dobbins against the linebackers or what have you, I'm going to assume we are going to come up with Ohio State being the advantage. Even Clemson's receivers, their passing game against Ohio State's pass defense, is that a pick 'em? Is that a wash? And that's now you're talking about where Clemson is really, really strong, and that might not even be an advantage.
Well, now I'm just flashing back to a conversation we had in the car on the way to Michigan, where it's we both knew objectively that Ohio State was better basically across, everywhere across the field than Michigan was. They had a personnel advantage just about everywhere on the field. And we're driving up. We stayed in Toledo the night before, and we're driving up the morning of the game, and it was we got 20 miles into the state of Michigan, and one of us, I think it was you, might have said, this is the point where all of a sudden I start thinking maybe this is the year they're going to lose. That Michigan's going to, and it was it's the same. You start talking yourself into stuff based on just kind of soft factors, What if Ryan Day doesn't really understand the rivalry? What if they've changed things too much from Urban Meyer and then they just obliterate Michigan? And I can certainly see us in the postgame show tomorrow night going, yeah, I mean, Ohio State had a better, won the battle. Won the battle in the trenches on both sides of the ball, and ended up just blowing Clemson off the field. Like that's entirely possible, and that's one of the reasons I think it's more likely that Ohio State blows out Clemson than Clemson blows out Ohio State. If it's a blowout, I think if you just tell me the score is 48-31, I will say that Ohio State will win that game. If you tell me the score's 31-30, like that's when you get into the tiny fractions of a play, and Clemson has sort of that veteran experience, and maybe they're more poised and they're more prepared in that kind of situation, and that's the difference of the game. But yeah, I mean, there's absolutely a way that Ohio State just kicks Clemson off the field. I don't think it happens, but like if it was, I wouldn't be like if they beat them by a couple touchdowns, I would not be like, wow, I didn't see this coming.
Of the four outcomes, Ohio State with a blowout win, Ohio State close win, Clemson close win, Clemson blowout. For me, the Clemson blowout would be the most surprising of those four things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's probably true. Yeah,
and I think we go back to, Ryan Day is telling us the talent is equated, and usually he lies about that. Mm-hmm. We are believing him this time. So then if we believe him, then it becomes down to this minutia of one misstep on a pass block, one failed blitz pickup by J.K. Dobbins could decide the game. But if Ohio State is really better in so many different areas, maybe that one play just makes it a 10-point game instead of a 17-point game. Tom.
Maybe.
Thank you, Tom.
That was definitely the most important word you said in that sentence. Maybe. I mean, if you want to look at the 24/7 talent composite, it's essentially you have an 85-man roster. They total up your recruiting points on your, and it's easy to say, well, AJ Hawk was a 3-star and blah blah blah. On the whole, I'm going to run down this list of the top 10, and you tell me, you're going to recognize a lot of playoff teams and past playoff teams on this list. Ready? Alabama, Ohio State, Georgia, USC, LSU, Florida State, Texas, Oklahoma, Clemson, Penn State. Those are your top 10. And, you have your Clay Helton-driven tire fires at USC and Willie Taggart-driven tire fires at Florida State, and Texas, which we've talked about before, is just sort of a weird cultural malaise for the last decade and a half.
An underground tire fire.
Yes. But, Clemson has as talented a team basically as almost anyone else in the country. They're ninth, and they've got 7 5-star kids on their roster. Ohio State has 13. Like, Ohio State is extremely talented. But Clemson has enough talent that they're within that blue chip ratio where you've got more than half of your players are 4 and 5 stars, which is just kind of like the baseline for you need to be about this good, talented wise, on your roster to win a national championship. So they're in that range. This is the most talented team, according to this metric, that Ohio State's going to face this year. And the teams right below that they have faced, Penn State's 10th, Michigan's 11th. Those are teams where the quarterback's not as good.
Yeah.
And the line play is probably not as good, especially the offensive line play. And in Penn State's case, and the defensive line play in Michigan's case. Like there are reasons that Clemson is doing what it's doing, and it is not solely a function of the ACC is really bad, you guys.
Well, and there's that as well, where there is some unknown to Clemson this season, and maybe they definitely get the benefit of the doubt. Now, not in terms of the rankings, because you still have to beat somebody this year, but we all assume they're very, very good. But in terms like the star rankings, you mentioned AJ Hawk. I'd say Isaiah Simmons, a 3-star guy, who clearly is better than outliving his rankings. So you can look into that all you want. But those guys, they do a good job of developing those guys and putting them in the right spots as well. Matt Bockhorst, however, not good enough to be a Buckeye, the Clemson offensive lineman. So I think, Ohio State has shown that they know what they're doing there.
Yeah, he's a backup. He's their backup left guard. We'll have an article going up about him on Saturday on the ozone.net. got a chance to talk to him this week. Really, really interesting guy. He was high school teammates with Justin Hilliard, and camped at Ohio State a couple times. Really wanted an Ohio State offer, didn't get it. He had offers from Michigan, Michigan State, Penn State. It was not like Clemson found this like diamond in the rough. He was a 4-star kid in state, and this was the end of the Ed Warner era, 2016, and they were slow playing in-state linemen, and it really blew up in their face. And talked to Urban Meyer on Thursday this week, and he said that was, if we didn't offer him, that was a mistake.
And I remember talking to Bockhorst after one of those camps, and he felt I think I did well. I feel like I did well, and that's usually what they say. But no offer yet. But they told me they'll get back with me, and they don't necessarily offer you right then.
Right.
They'll have a talk, they'll have a meeting, and do it. Now sometimes they will, but I don't recall that actually happened with Bockhorst, because I was surprised then to see Clemson jump in at that point and him go to the Tigers, but. The talent is equated, unless it's not, and it's just an ACC driven thing where Clemson is just riding the wave of the ACC suck.
Well, this is one of these things where maybe they are just a product of a really terrible schedule. Like it's possible that's the case, because they really truly have not played anyone this year. I mean, that's kind of like a meme, like, oh, y'all ain't played nobody. But look, really, their only ranked win was against Virginia among teams who were in the college football playoff rankings, and Virginia went down one spot after losing 62-17. So that was the college football playoff committee throwing them a bone.
Yes.
But if you were a really, 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 really good team in an absolutely garbage conference, you would win games by scores like 52-14, 41-6, 52-10, 45-14, 45-10, 59-7, 59-14, 55-10, 52-3, 38-3, and 62-17.
And this is a lot like what Ohio State does. They're benching their guys in the third quarter, and then trying to not make it 80-0 like they could most weeks.
Yeah. I mean, the only two close games they had all year were 24-10 against Texas A&M, which was really 24-3, and then Texas A&M scored like the garbage time touchdown to end all garbage time touchdowns at the end. And then they had that one weird game at North Carolina where they won 21-20, and North Carolina on Friday absolutely blew Temple off the field. Like North Carolina is the best team they've played this year, and that's both sort of praise for North Carolina and also a little damning for Clemson. But that's at least a respectable team that you would look at North Carolina and go, yeah, they could go. That's the only team that I'd look at and go, they could finish maybe 500 or above in the Big Ten.
Yeah. And they've got a good quarterback in Sam Howell, who is just a freshman, but
yeah, they're going to be good. Yeah.
Yeah. Do we want to get to questions?
Sure. Let's do questions. First one from our buddy at Suncard19. Who is the most likely non-quarterback to throw a touchdown for the Buckeyes?
Well, you recall the last time Ohio State, well, not the last time, the Alabama game. Mm-hmm. That was Evan Spencer. Was he in the slot when he did that?
No, I think he was wide, because didn't they give it to Jalen Marshall?
Right.
And then they gave it to Jalen Marshall, and then they gave it to Evan Spencer.
I don't know. Can Chris Olave throw? What about Chris Olave throwing it to Garrett Wilson?
Sure, sounds good. I mean, those are names. They are players who will probably play in the game.
What about Rashad Berry, defensive end, tight end, quarterback?
I mean, he has shown good positional versatility this year. That's a good thought.
Here's one for you, Tom. Not a wide receiver, but actually a player other than quarterback, DeJuan Jones, who in the transcripts. The person doing the typing, the transcript people, got him confused with Dwayne Haskins. Mm-hmm. And so the transcript reads, DeJuan Jones, very good passer, from last year, very good, not a great runner per se, not like Justin Fields.
That checks out, yeah.
But a very good pro arm on DeJuan Jones. So watch out for that one.
I mean, there's really two possibilities here. Number one is that the transcription people have some insight into the Ohio State football program that we don't have. Number two is that the transcription folks are not great. And given the turnaround time on the transcriptions, which has been time it with a sundial, I'm going to lean towards the latter and tell you that you're wrong and you have not said the correct name. We have seen a non-quarterback throw a pass
Drew
for a big
Chrisman?
Big play, Drew Chrisman. And it doesn't come on a fake punt. He's also the holder
That's correct.
on a fake field goal. So Drew Chrisman is your answer, Gerd. I'm sorry, we have some lovely parting gifts.
Will he do it? You know how he does the bottle flips behind his back and stuff like that? Will it be something like that?
Oh, man. Like
a blind
the
throw.
old LSU fake field goal?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Although that wouldn't necessarily be a pass, though, if it's just behind him.
I mean, I think
You got to get it forward.
I think within the spirit of the conversation.
I do not think so. He would not be part of that play.
Can I tell you how excited I would be to write a Drew Chrisman's bottle flipping waste of time finally pays off article? Like, that would be...
Local boy finally does something with his life.
I would say that would definitely be one where I would probably want to read the comments, because I think there'd be some people very angry about things that were jokes. Jokes, friends. We do jokes here. Next one from @Rob_Eric. What is the deal with those Fiesta Bowl hoodies? Are they as unflattering in person as they are in pictures and interviews? And he clarified it was the ones about the players, not the media.
Because the players are all in white, Tom, right?
It looked like they looked like they were like white bathrobes. Like it was an order of monks that
Yes.
just wore white bathrobes.
Now, Tom, is it after Labor Day right now, or is it before Labor Day?
It's
right now?
after, because it's
So there you go.
yeah, not very fashionable.
Nope.
They did look super comfortable though. Like not the kind of thing you would wear out if you were gonna, you knew you were gonna be on TV. But it did look like extremely comfortable, like sitting around on the couch watching football all Saturday.
Yeah.
Wear like that, and that's not bad. I could go for a good comfy sweatsuit to just sit around in.
With your name on it.
Exactly, with my number on it. Yes.
What number would that be?
I don't know. Would pick something nice. Next one from @Brock774111489. Seems like you should get a new username, Brock. That's kind of confusing. Do you think the Buckeyes will play Proctor a lot with the other starting secondary, like a lot of dime?
I was wondering about that because, like I said, Clemson will run some 4 wides. I would rather see more dime than 4-4.
I don't think you're going to see 4-4. I think that Michigan made it pretty clear to them that don't do this. Don't do this again, friends. This is not working out.
Because I've seen Clemson will do some 2 tight end stuff. They're kind of split as like dual H's with Travis Etienne in the backfield. But even then, I think Sean Wade, Josh Proctor, those guys. We saw Josh Proctor lay the wood like in a Wisconsin game. So it's not like he's some dainty thing. He can hit and.
How much man coverage have we seen him in?
Not a lot, because if he's in, he's the deep guy.
Right.
He's Jordan Fuller.
So you put Jordan Fuller over one of the slot guys,
right.
and then Proctor's the deep safety.
And I think we've actually seen some of that where Jordan Fuller will come in, kind of be a strong safety type. So yeah, I think we'll see some of that. And I don't know who it was talking about Josh Proctor maybe having more range than Malik Hooker, which is.
I feel like we've heard that since almost day one that he got here.
Just be careful. But so I was actually talking to Proctor about that, and he said that's kind of some lofty praise. And I'm like, yeah, but before you can replace Malik Hooker, you have to replace Jordan Fuller, and that's no small thing either. He's like, I know.
Yeah, I could see them going with that route, and I think they've started building enough confidence in guys like Cam Brown and Sevyn Banks that you might see one of those guys out there instead, and you have 4 true corners on the field, and you keep Fuller as that deep safety. And with as much as Clemson might run 3 and 4 wide, and as you're probably going to rotate those guys. Every name that we said, you are probably going to see on defense at some point on Saturday night in Glendale. Next one from @GoBucks81. Do you think the Clemson staff has been game planning for Ohio State towards the end of their season, while OSU had to focus on Penn State, Michigan, and the Big Ten championship?
I don't think they've been game planning. They may have been cutting film of all of the possible 5 or 6 possible opponents in the first round just to get ready. But I think they're too preoccupied with their own schedule and you don't know who you're going to play.
And that's the thing. I think we probably in mid-November had a pretty good sense that one of these 6 teams is going to be who Ohio State plays in the playoff. and you had a decent idea, even the week of the Michigan game, like, yeah, it's probably going to be one of these two teams unless they lose. But I don't know if I don't think Clemson. They're not going to. They may have had the luxury of doing some install for more general things that, hey, we may want to run this, and they may not have gone through as much of their playbook as Ohio State has this year. But in terms of like specifically game planning, I don't think they've done.
No, I think it's more intel. Like,
yeah,
tell us what Ohio State does. Tell us what Oklahoma does. Tell us what Alabama does.
Yeah. General film study and general, and that's not like Dabo Swinney's in there doing film study or Brent Venables. That's QC, some QC guy or grad assistant or
assistant to the assistant.
Yeah, exactly.
Interns. There's always interns as well.
Yeah, and so you can have that kind of ready to go, and I'm sure Ohio State did the same thing. But you're not, they're not in practice like starting to install stuff based on what Ohio State's doing. That's not, they've been thinking about it, but they haven't been working on it until probably after.
You have 3 weeks after the ACC championship game if you want to, and sometimes that's even too many weeks. That's too much time where you start to do the whole paralysis by analysis.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that I think everyone probably went into had people working on stuff, LSU, Oklahoma, Ohio State, Clemson, all of them, and probably Utah too, and probably Baylor too. Like
Utah had been game planning for Ohio State, and that's what cost them.
That could be. They did get a W over Ohio State this month, so that's something. Next one, also from Buckeye Chuck at GoBucks81. Special teams could be an area where Ohio State might have an edge. Do you see Matt Barnes having something in play for this game? Seems like he studies other teams' tendencies and comes up with something, onside kick and fake punt plays already this year.
You already told us.
Yeah, I mean, that's, Dabo Swinney on
Dabo
Friday
told us too.
Dabo said, someone asked him about, trick plays and having trick plays, and he just started launching into this. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, someone asked him about Will Spires, their punter, apparently has had some good passes at some point in the past, and he was asked about it, and he goes, oh, yeah, well, our first punt, here's what we're going to do. We're going to go out there. We're going to run a triple reverse, flea flicker, and, for a touchdown. And then he looked over at Ryan Day. He goes, oh, I forgot you were here. Oh, forget I said anything. And obviously he's joking. But, yeah, I mean, you're going to have something. I'm sure both teams have something in as a break glass in case of emergency. And they've probably identified something on the other team that, on kickoffs, they're guys who are, on that front line 10 yards. Sometimes they'll leave early. So maybe there's an opportunity to onside kick. Or the way they set up their punt shield, we might be able to block it by doing this.
Like sometimes Tough Borland can't get over to the side quick enough to get that edge rusher. Yeah, as we've seen before this season.
Yeah, and so I'm sure they have that stuff in there, and I'm sure that punt block and field goal block, like they will definitely try and run. Onside kick is probably more like, well, if we have to do this at some point, we'll do it.
Was it the Wisconsin game? Wisconsin faked a reverse on the kickoff return, I believe.
Yes, that sounds right. Yeah,
and I think Ohio State, watching it live, I thought it would have hit big, but then I watched the replay and Ohio State was waiting for it, or they had a guy out there waiting. So there's just so much minutia and everything like the options that you have to prepare for that that never may pop up.
Yeah, it would be interesting, and this is something that I think you could see from Ryan Day. Like if Ohio State wins the toss or Clemson wins the toss and Ohio State gets the ball, and they go right down the field and score, they go out and just onside kick it right then. Like that would not completely shock me, just because we've seen Ryan Day is willing to just kind of flop it out there and
he's told his team, like, if we score this particular play, like going into the game, like if we score on this drive, third drive or whatever, we're gonna kick onside. Mm-hmm. I'm sure some sort of incentive, he could say, hey, we score on our first drive, we're gonna kick an onside kick because we've seen it. Now, if there's nothing there, if they haven't seen anything in film that they can take advantage of, that's one thing.
Sure.
But they did see that. Matt Barnes, Ryan Day has said multiple times, Barnes is good at finding stuff.
Yeah, and so that's certainly a possibility. I am sure they have something in the plan. You may not see it because they may have another game after this, and they may need to save it for.
There you go.
Next one from at DC Mark 79. How do you see Ohio State responding if they go down a couple scores early, a la the Sugar Bowl against Bama, down 21-6?
I think they'll be okay. The difference is, for me, like, how does Clemson respond? If they keep scoring, that's bad. Like if Ohio State is chasing the entire time, that's not great. I think they'll be okay because they've been there before. Now, I think the better question is what happens with Clemson if they're down 2 scores. Which is something that they haven't done this season.
Right.
Ohio State has. Clemson can still go back to that. Well, we won a national championship last year. We have faced some adversity. But I think Ohio State would be okay. It's not ideal at all, though.
No, and Clemson won the national championship last year, but they weren't ever really way down at any point because they blew Notre Dame out in the semifinal. And it was 14-13 in the national championship game against Alabama after 1 quarter, and then that was it. And then they just stepped on the gas and just went.
So it's like, what happens when things don't go easily for Clemson? What can they do? What kind of power do they have?
Yeah, that's kind of more interesting to me for sure, because it does seem like Ohio State has enough stuff they can do where, if things are really spiraling, like, okay, just establish the run. Try and kind of push reset on the game and go from there. Last one from at Lawrence DeBrin 2. Is Sean Wade good to go? Saw his hamstring was taped up earlier in the week, and we kind of touched on that.
Yeah.
He is good to go. He's expected to play, and
is he 100%, Tom?
I don't know. Oh. Maybe.
In fact, maybe.
Big if true.
Is that it?
That's it.
All right. Hey, we want to thank everybody for listening. We always appreciate that. If you're interested in getting the ad-free versions of these shows, plus some bonus content as well, you can check us out at patreon.com/Buckeye Weekly. And also check out the rest of the shows on the Ozone Radio Network with the Buckeye Sloopcast on Mondays and Fridays and Silver Bullets on Tuesdays. Us, Tom, maybe we will eventually get back to once a week.
I don't know. I don't know when that's going to happen. I mean, that may depend on the results of a certain football game on Saturday night in Glendale, Arizona.
We'll see. Hopefully not once a week anytime soon then, right?
Yeah, that would be... I'm ready to keep covering football. And Ryan Day talked about not being ready for this season to end. Like, this has been a fun season. I'd like to watch this team play a couple more times.
Indeed. So we thank you all for listening, and check out the ozone.net. There's all kinds of stuff there from this entire week, and in fact, many weeks before that as well.
Some of that content from September is slightly less relevant than the stuff we've written this week. Which, but yeah, we've had a lot of a lot more access than we normally get this week, just in terms of being able to talk to a ton of different people.
The tough part is just getting it all out there.
Well, and that's the thing. It is, a lot of times it's, we don't have enough stuff to write. Sometimes this week it's, we have too much stuff to write and not enough time to do it. So.
Such is life. So we will talk to you guys before the game and then after the game, and we'll see how things go. Talk to you later.